Live tonight from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to RacespotTV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted. We're getting set to go racing for the 18th time in 2020 as we gear up for tonight's Pure Michigan 160. I want to welcome you into the RacespotTV booth as we do every night on a Monday night, where alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, happen to be joined by Dylan Coyle and our producer, Hugo Luis. And we talked about this last time out, Dylan, that coming into tonight now, 3 races left to go until we go playoff racing in 2020. A majority of the field has already been made up based on race wins. But tonight at Michigan, an all-new challenge at the Daytona Road Course next week, and then a regular season finale on the Daytona Superspeedway stand between about 6 drivers right now who think they're in, but still aren't certain.
And we've got quite the battle gearing up, as you see both of our faces right there. Sorry for the lighting, by the way, but I'm so happy to have you back in the booth, Evan. Last week, you really put me out there, and I don't know what you were doing, but nonetheless.
We got to figure it out. We're here. We're not missing Michigan.
You can't miss Michigan. Michigan, just a couple races left before we actually get to the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series playoffs. Got a tie for the last spot. You're going to see drivers like Steve Durham, Gary Sexton really push here in the last couple of races to try and certify themselves as playoff contenders. I'm really excited for this one. We've got a couple races to go. I believe 3 to go before we do get to that elusive 21st round, the playoffs start. And I know we're all gearing up for that, but 3 races left. Anything can happen.
And Michigan's a racetrack as well. I mean, there's a look at our schedule. Tonight is round number 18. And yes, that Daytona Road Course and the Super Speedway still to come. Those are big wild cards. We all know that. But honestly, that whole time we're talking, I'm glued to watching the qualifying session because Michigan's a wild card as well. I was looking at the top 10 in practice. There were a lot of names who are kind of 20 to 25 positioned cars in an all race. that were maybe up to P10 or so. So here's a look at the playoff standings coming into this evening. One note, as we mentioned last week, Malik Ray in their 2 race wins, 4th on the playoff grid. He has not made the minimum starts required. He will not be eligible. So bump that red line down. That's where our tie is between Steve Durham and Gary Sexton. I actually think, Dylan, if we did the math, Sexton would have the tiebreaker, but we didn't do it because it does not end here tonight. But those drivers, Sean Kalist, Kyle Kammer, not that far back, they are going to be in the battle for what honestly looks like about a 4-horse race for one spot. Bradley Burke, Brian Chambliss, all those drivers, right-hand side of your screen where they have a number, not a win tally. Those drivers aren't safe either, but it is a big jump from Durham to Burke. Now over 3 races, that 30-point gap could drop back, but certainly Steve Durham and Gary Sexton are the guys sweating right now.
Yeah, they're definitely the drivers sweating. And what you don't see in that top 20 graphic, right behind Kyle Kammer, is the driver of the car, Stephen Soa, is in. Now, Soa is just 3 points further back of Kammer with 284 points. We're certainly gearing up for a very close finish, and with all the qualifying time set to be in the upper 38.8s in terms of that pole time for this race, we might see some drivers like Gary Sexton who need some good points here. And I also don't think, by the way, Evan, that he would have the tiebreaker. It's showing Steve Durham, but obviously it could be done on count back where we can look at the actual standings. But nonetheless, Gary Sexton, he's going to be starting pretty high once we get to this grid order.
And the qualifying session just drawing down to a close. Looks like the top 22 drivers take a time, and pole position going to belong to Thomas George, a 38.847. Going to bring us to the green flag, led by that Steel Horse Racing entry, and Daniel Scott on the outside of the front row in second. Jeremy E. Miller, one of the top drivers last season, making his first start for 2020, rolls from third. And Gary Sexton, who we just mentioned, needs good points right there in P4. Justin Carey, Agnell Phillip going to double up. They'll be 5th and 6th spot on row 3. Michael Loraya will start from 7th with Bradley Burke at 8th. Dane Cruz is 9th, and Kyle Trudell rounds out your top 10.
And Davey Lamont will be starting from 11th with Brian Chambliss right alongside him in row 6. Joseph Theus alongside Adam Benefiel, Ross Cotto, and Rhett McBride round out your top 8 rows. 17th, Grant Davis. Sam Nieto, he was really looking for the win just the other week. Couldn't make it work on fuel mileage. He's in 18th. John Fowler, 19th. And to round out your top 20 is John Rodden.
He'll be 21st with Tom Moreno in 22nd, and those are the drivers who take times in qualifying, so the rest will be based on provisionals. Big names back there: Dylan Jones, David Washington, Shade Parrish through the top 25, Durham, Kaczynski, Soa, Kalist, and Valderrama through 30th, with Pellegrini, Winfield, Andrew Freenage 33rd, Daniel Eberhardt 34th, and Eric Stanford at 35th position. Those are big names opting not to qualify here at Michigan. Let's talk more about MIS. This 2-mile D-shaped oval means that as we go racing tonight for 80 laps, we'll go racing for 160 miles of competition, 18 degrees of banking in the quarter. I was talking with some of the drivers pre-race, though, Dylan. This is often referred to as the sister track to Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, but I think this racetrack races totally differently. I think that even though it's roughly the same look, I just think that there's more lanes that can come into play. We saw some great racing over the weekend here with the NASCAR Cup Series. We saw a thriller here last Tuesday when we were racing, or 2 Tuesdays ago, with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and I think we're going to be in store for a good show tonight with 35 cars ready to go.
Well, we're not even talking about the layout when we talk about the similarities and the differences between both Michigan and Auto Club Speedway. Now, Auto Club, when you think of the track, you think it's very wide, but it's very flat. So you're not going to be always able to make all the grooves work there. However, Michigan, it's 18 degrees of banking in the turns. That can really open up some passing opportunities, especially if you're running closer to the wall. And I think as we have a great, not even just on-board shot, not even just a normal camera shot, we've got a triple screen in-cockpit camera from Gary Sexton. we've been seeing Sexton on the cameras and the onboard cameras, I guess you could say, looking at his face, but now it's a bit of a different story here, Evan.
Yeah, this is exactly what the driver sees, is it's basically that POV shot from the driver who comes into this evening tied for the final spot into the playoffs. He will start for the outside of row 2. But the pace car is going to be down and in. As always, happy that you're spending your Monday night with us on RacespotTV as we say, let's go racing from Michigan. Round 6 of the Full Throttle Cup Series. You can see the top 4 single file, first time at a 2. Now it's Daniel Scott looking to the outside on Sexton. And now to the bottom, here comes Jeremy E. Miller. Started 3rd, but he wants the race lead. He's to the inside in 3.
That's a big move there to get some clean air, except for the leader. But look at that entire group coming right there. We're going to have side-by-side for the lead. But the 27 of Jeremy E. Miller leads lap number 1.
So much room for these cars to spread them high and wide. Sexton looked to the outside, didn't commit to it. He drops back, and we are 2 by 2 through the top 6. Here comes Carey now. He'll go to the way inside. That's that bright-colored teal and yellow Ford Mustang on the bottom, but a push on the outside by Sexton. Going to put Thomas George to the lead. Now 3 wide for second. Miller stuck in the middle.
To give you a good look at the speed of these cars on the back straight, they're topping off at around 194 miles per hour. They're only lifting to around 182 miles per hour mid-turn. So not much of a speed difference, definitely a momentum-based track, and the draft will be massive here as they come off turn 2.
You know, long gone are the days of 215 miles an hour at Michigan, but it is still high-flying action looking off of the back of the 9 of George. That is Sexton's number 13 Toyota. Right up and onto the bumper onto the outside line, but the inside, the place to be for Jeremy Miller, who ends up race leader at a turn 4, now on board with Justin Carey in 4th. Running that higher line, you can see Sexton as well, rocking that NASCAR All-Star race. The number pushed back towards the rear tires. I think that's the first car we've seen do that here on a Monday night in the Full Throttle Cup Series, but a great start as we're off and away for round 18, and Carey going to tuck in line for the first time. Your top 5 are single file.
We've got some 3 wide racing further in the back, but I really think that everyone has been handling this beast of a track pretty well so far. We've seen in recent weeks crashes and spins happening very early on, notably Kentucky. We had some big incidents twice in the first 10 laps, but everyone has seemed to be pretty well behaved in this 80-lap race. And when we have to talk about fuel mileage, well, you can make it on 1 stop if the math is correct on a green flag total run. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen. We might see some stops for tires as the laps begin to wind down. But, Evan, I'm not sure if you can do the math with me. I think 1 stop, that's the strategy that most drivers are going to use on a full green flag run.
Yeah, I think if they can get to 40, that's going to be the easy decision. Of course, math never my strong suit. That's why we're talking about the race, and I'm not out there racing against them. But certainly, I think just because of how close the cars are, you can see some single file. Actually, a lot of cars going up against the wall. That's the preferred lane. So the cars on the bottom are going to be really the ones that are challenging as we see a battle here with the 40 of Davey Lamont, that black Ford on the inside of the white and red Chevy. That is Daniel Scott on the outside, the Chick-fil-A machine, but he's able to win out for the moment. And that's why the outside is the preferred position, because Lamont going to go up top just ahead of the 44, Michael Loraya, who we've seen a lot of good runs out of, and that leaves just the 7 of Kyle Trudell on the bottom. Once more, we look off at the bumper of Jeremy Miller, who has cycled into a comfortable race lead. He's led the most laps now with 6 down.
You know, we have the ability to listen into all of the drivers here on the radio, and Rhett McBride giving David Washington in the 98 some props for that vehicle because it looks good, and McBride was very happy to say it. So it's always nice to hear what the drivers can say to each other, because it's not like the normal NASCAR Cup Series. Everyone can really have some nice conversations, whether that's banter, complaining, or the odd congratulations on a beautiful paint scheme.
Yeah, I was actually talking about that pre-race that I saw McBride. It's an all-black number 5, but the numbers, the sponsors are chromed out. He's back in 25th, so he wants to improve on that. But that is one good look at race car enlisted. Rick McBride's a guy that normally runs a lot higher than 25th. He actually started this race in 16th, so it was a very tough get-go for him in the AMSOIL iRacing iFlag Chevy. He's going to try to work his way back through. But look at the big names back here. I mean, you've got, Steve Durham right there. Adam Benefiel in the number 83 machine. Just up the road is Andrew Friedosh. He was trying to drive away from this pack in his blue, black, and white car. You're on board with him. He started in 33rd position. That time by the stripe is already up to P22.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of top drivers just hanging back for the first half of the races. We've seen that a lot so far in the 2020 season here, but the drivers who do qualify and start pretty far back, they do have the chance to win a Hard Charger award and get an extra $5 in their pockets. Isn't that right, Evan?
Yeah, the Doppler Durham on the radar Hard Charger award going to go to the most positions gained of the drivers that qualify each night, as Sexton goes all the way to the apron to challenge for the race lead. He led that time by with 9 laps down, but he will not get all the way clear into turn number 1. So can Jeremy Miller fight back on the outside in the Valvoline Camaro? Yes, he will. They'll stay on each other's door, and that's a great shot there. Look at the speed from the 27 car as he rings the outside. Went from about a car length behind to a car length ahead in the trip from the center of 1 and 2 down to 3. He's now clear once more, and that's why the cars in line protect the top, because it is so much easier to carry that momentum. You are on board, literally, with a 13 of Gary Sexton. It's exactly what he sees as he chases down the 27.
Thomas George is going to try to go down the inside of Sexton here. Might get the job done, but remember that high line, it brings so much more speed coming out of the corner. Now, it's very easy to look at each of the exit corners, turn 2 and turn 4, and think that they've got the same exit speeds, even turns 1 and 3 in terms of entry speed. But when you think about it, when you're going into turn 1, you've got a much higher turning radius, so there won't be as much speed lost. However, when you're going onto the back straight or you're going into turn 3, you're going to have to deal with some slower speeds than what you would get going into turn 1. That's just because of the curvature of that D-shaped dog leg, I guess you could say, of a front straight compared to just the straight back straight.
Yeah, and you can see now as looking off the back of the 9 of George, Sexton's going to make another dive to the inside of the 27. As you're exactly right. I mean, you kind of want to hold the outside. That's where the speed is, as Sexton takes over the race lead with a pass in 3 and 4, but it's shorter down here. So Miller's going to do it all the way to the apron. He'll get right up alongside Sexton for the race lead into turn number 1. Pulls him at a half a car length, but he needs to get clear if he wants to close this out. It's a role reversal from 5 laps ago. There's a little bit of a gap. Sexton wants to force the issue. Is into the outside wall. Sexton down. He'll tag Nieto. It is a huge wreck on the back straightaway, and our first caution of the night claims bubble driver Gary Sexton.
Oh man, Gary Sexton. I feel like if we're talking about one driver that has had who has had no golden horseshoe this season, it's definitely been Sexton. He seems to get a little bit unlucky every single race, and he's trying to hold on to it. Can't do it. Huge wreck, takes out the 94. Looked like Sam Nieto was involved as well. Oh man, just a shame here as we see on this slow motion replay. That's a big wreck in that beautiful 13 All-Star car. It's he's going to have to come down to pit road. The race is not 100% over for Sexton, though. but it's not going to take, this isn't going to make it any easier for him in that trek to the front. Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Evan. Was that, I mean, obviously you look at it like a racing incident, but was he pushed a little too high up there?
Oh, and that was the question over the radio. As soon as that happened, Jeremy Miller came over and said, I thought I left enough room. Thomas George, who was the 9 car behind that, said, yes, you did. And then Gary Sexton agreed. He actually just claimed responsibility for the yellow, which if you're new to RSR competition, it means that if there's an incident and you claim responsibility, you will get 1 penalty point. If you don't claim it and it is reviewed post-race, you get 2. So Sexton owns up to it. I think Miller moved up the track a little bit. The 13 tried to stay in the gas, even though there was a hole there, and that initial kind of movement up the racetrack is what put him into the outside wall. Tough break for Sexton. He's going to be down pit road to get it fixed, but everybody else down pit road for 4 tires, I assume, and fuel. Like every Monday night, there are only 3 sets of tires available on pit road, so expect the majority of the field to use up one of them.
I mean, you've kind of got to think that whenever there is a yellow after a decently long green flag run, drivers are going to come down and get some tires, unless, like you said, the 3-set rule does get to the limit, especially early on with these cautions. But you knew that was coming, that incident. You just didn't think that that would be at the very front of the pack. It's such a shame for Sexton because he's right on that bubble. He's going to spend some extended time in the pits. It just, man, it's a shame for him.
And you can see he's not the only damaged one. That one behind him is Agnew Phillip, the 94, that blue and white entry, who is all torn up, no front end on that Chevrolet. He was actually well behind where the incident happened, but I mentioned Sam Nieto got destroyed. The 94 basically drove into the back of Sexton after that contact, so Phillips damaged. I think that's Bradley Burke, the 95. Next car down pit road, he's damaged all the way down there. That blue and orange Ford, that is Sam Nieto's number 2. So there is lots of damage to go around. Now there's the pace car coming out of turn number 4. So for these drivers trying to get damage fixed but not lose a lap, or do they feel like it is severe damage? Bradley Burke is going to look at one of the pit signs there. Bradley Burke's going to try to drag race, and he's going to get back onto the racetrack. So Bradley Burke is done with service for now. Still doesn't have a hood, still doesn't have bumper, but he's back on track. He will not lose a lap. Looks like Agnew Phillip also. Gary Sexton. Man, that was close. I think maybe those drivers also just beat the pace car off of the pit lane. His lights are out on top of that Ford Mustang, so we're going to go back underway. That was a tight call, though. Those drivers trying to get every little bit of damage fixed they could while staying on the lead lap. That's critical.
I feel like I was watching Lightning McQueen trying to beat out the pace car from Cars.
Which, by the way, if you right? Well, no, but if you watch Cars, he did not beat the pace car out of pit lane.
He did not.
He was like 3 car lengths short. It was not even close.
It's such a shame because we strive for realism here with the Full Throttle Cup Series, and we do not endorse Cars realism.
No, I mean it's disappointing, but. In RSR, we do have the line off of the pit lane, so I can promise you that if iRacing says those 3 drivers beat the pace car off the pit road, they did. So they're still at speed trying to catch up to the field, and it's a long way around here under a pace lap, but your race leader is going to be ready to go. And a bit of a change over the front of the field. The top 5 drivers did not pit. So Jones, Washington, Friedrich, Durham, and Davis all stayed out. Jeremy E. Miller, the first car on fresh rubber, going to restart for the outside of row number 3 in position 6. Green flag flies. We're back underway for Dylan Jones to the race lead.
David Washington is right on Dylan Jones' bumper as they come out of turn 2. And what happened to Dylan Jones there? He lost a lot of steam, and David Washington.
I don't know if they're not feeling safe up front or what, but again, those cars stayed out. We talked about them trying to save a set of tires. They are both slow on the inside. Maybe Dylan Jones wanted to go up there, get the single bonus point for leading a lap and drop to the back, but that looked like it was planned between the 98 and the 11 to drop low. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, Jeremy E. Miller back to the race lead on fresh tires. Now, Steve Durham's going to tough this one out. Let's see how important 15-lap-old tires are. Just kidding.
Well,
Durham hits the eject button as well. He's on the apron. He is going back, and all 5 cars who stayed out are already outside of your top 15. They want nothing to do with those cars on the fresh rubber.
I mean, in fairness, it makes sense, because if you've never tried to take a spin on a stock car on an iRacing oval, you do not understand how quickly the tires wear out. For example, I know that for myself, from the Ark and Menard series in Class D iRacing, pretty much a cool guy right there. You can totally see the tires just come off within 15-20 laps of just a race around Bristol, and you'll lose a second. At Michigan, it's going to be something similar, but at a different rate, a different level, and the speeds are going to be so much different, Evan.
There's a lot of confusion at the back of the pack. You can see the race lead battle going on as such, carried out of the inside. First real good look that the number 12 Mustang going to have for the point. But again, you'll see the outside line is just too good at a turn number 2. But all those cars who slowed down and went to the back meant that they were slow by about 5 miles an hour or so for a lap or 2. And it has really discombobulated things at the back of the pack. There's a lot of 2-3 wide back there. All those drivers have been able to navigate it for the time being. So this battle rages on, and I think the 12's got a shot on the inside as Justin Carey looks to secure a bonus point, leading lap 20.
Bonus points are very fun, and they come around once every lap. There's a maximum of 80 bonus points per the entire field if we had 80 drivers. Obviously, that'll never happen, but you lead 1 lap, you get 1 bonus point. It's as simple as that. And Evan, with some of these drivers, for example, Gary Sexton, he could have really used some of those bonus points. I think he led a lap or 2 earlier in that run, and that will help quite a bit depending on the finishing positions of Steve Durham, and some other drivers.
And look at the 9 car on board with George here. He's going to squeeze up to the outside wall, put Davey Lamont in the middle of 3 wide as Justin Carey goes back down to the inside. 3 wide in battle for second. And the 40 car wins that game ejected. He goes to P2, wins out in that fight for the moment. Carey real sideways off of the corner. This is basically one giant pack. The top 14 cars, all within 1 second of one another. Everybody else from 15th on back, nearly 5 seconds behind. That's that discombobulation that I was talking about. It has allowed these top dozen or so cars to pull away from everybody else by a country mile. You can see the next cars back there. I saw Benefield, McBride, Winfield, and then there's the rest of them strung out single file. Kind of like what a plate race looks like after a cycle of pit stops.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with plate racing, you'll see a bunch of different packs form, and you've kind of got to think that with the current package that the Cup Series uses at tracks like Michigan, you know, that high downforce, low horsepower package, you're going to have a lot more of pack racing, that feeling happening. You see so many changes for the lead, things like that.
And all of this continues on, talking about bonus points. I mean, we see this happen at least a handful of times each week where somebody goes for the bonus point. And the bonus points in this Cup Series are not as critical as they are, say, in the IROC Series, when we're not racing on Mondays, where most laps led is 5 bonus points. Second most is third. Third most is 2 bonus points. That replicates the actual IROC system. The bonus point system here in the Full Throttle Cup Series roughly resembles that of NASCAR racing, as the 9 of George got awfully close on the door. Lamont and nearly took him out of 4. But the maximum points any driver can get on bonus points each night is 2. 1 for leading a lap and 1 more for leading the most laps. not a deal breaker on any given night, but over the course of a 20-race regular season, that stuff can add up.
It can really pay to be out front for long stretches at a time. Typically, that's something that drivers like Andrew Farinaj and Dylan Jones, both playoff contenders once we do head to the playoffs in 3 races time, they don't necessarily need much of anymore, especially Farinaj. Farinaj, here we go again with that name. But Daniel Eberhardt, who was to be run alongside him, he could benefit from some points, break away from some of the other drivers currently with at least 2 wins. He's got 3 wins. If a driver comes and gets another win like Kyle Trudell, then he's going to have to think about some extra points to help out with that run into the playoffs and separate himself from him.
And we talked a lot about Dylan Jones as well. Limited starts. He's only making his 7th start of the season. And again, the minimum rule, we talked about Malik Ray not being eligible for the playoffs any longer when she needed to start 10. There was a waiver given to Jones if he started all 9 of the races that he was eligible for. So assuming tonight is start 7, he races both at the Daytona Road Course and the Super Speedway, he will hit 9. That is his number, and he will be allowed. But you talk about new drivers winning. Well, what about Jeremy E. Miller? He's your race leader right now. This is his first start of 2020. He does not have a playoff waiver. He is not going to be able to qualify for the playoffs if he wins one of these last 3 races, because 3 races falls well short of that minimum participation requirement. So all Miller's out there to do is mess with guys like Davey Lamont and some of these other drivers who are trying to fight towards the front of the field, who are trying to get points and or wins. He's basically the spoiler.
I mean, I would be very disappointed to see Jeremy E. Miller win if I was a driver who really needed to get some points from a win to just clinch themselves into the playoffs, because not only is it not a driver who already has a bunch of wins in their count, in their pocket, it's a driver who has nothing to gain except some pride from winning a race because the playoffs, well, he doesn't have a waiver, as you were just saying. So a driver like Steve Soa, a driver like Steve Durham, when they really need a win most, if they're competing with Jeremy Miller at the end, they're going to feel really hard done by if they don't finish on that coveted P1.
And I would have to double check to confirm, but I think this is also Davey Lamont's first start for a Cup Series Monday. I know he's competed in some of the Outlaw Truck Series events that take place every other Tuesday. In fact, won the RealSimRacing Outlaw Truck Series a couple of weeks back at Stafford Motor Speedway. So he is fighting with some of the drivers for the Points Championship, and that's a 10-week series. Not on TV, just for these guys to have some fun with on Tuesdays, but I think it is his first appearance here to Monday as well, so a win for him also would not count towards playoff eligibility. So then you're looking at this next set of drivers who are really looking at a handful of spoilers who are side by side for the race lead. Lamont going to go to the inside, but Miller's got that preferred lane about 2 to 3 lanes up off of the bottom. Untouchable that time at 1 and 2. Lamont going to have to hit the reset button, try again. Meanwhile, George to 3rd, and the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt from 34th on the grid to P4.
Pretty remarkable to see how some of these drivers have fared as Jeremy E. Miller gets very close to the wall out of turn 4, is able to keep that momentum up, but it looks like some other drivers are going to have something to say about it. 3 wide into turn 1.
And trying to go to the middle was Lamont. Remember, he made that middle work in the 40 a little bit ago, but it's not going to happen this time. Now a big slide to the outside by Eberhardt. No room there, though, so he's just going to run into the back of the Donna. Thomas George give him a little bit of a push down to turn number 3, so Eberhardt guessed wrong there, found a roadblock, and over to go side by side for second. Lamont low, George high, and again, no room for the 90 to sneak on through. But sticking with that theme, the big movers, we talked about Eberhardt, who's plus 31. These cars all pitted the last time down pit road, so this isn't on strategy, it's all on race pace. Michael Kaczynski as well, that bright green and black Chevrolet on the outside, trying to fight for 4th. He started 27th, so he's up 22 spots in his own right. You're on board with him.
Kaczynski's kind of sandwiched in a 2x2, 2 rows back, trying to get into P2. All this is doing is, for the moment, helping Jeremy E. Miller take his 40.21 second lap time and run a little bit away, but without any draft help, it's going to help Daniel Eberhardt get right to his rear, and he's going to drift a little bit up to the wall out of turn 2. It's really interesting to see how the driving styles of all these cars are. We haven't gone past this point when it comes to tire wear, so anybody who is on either new sets of tires or the same old sets, they're going to be tested here. Will this perhaps be a change of who's fast and who's not? How have the tires worn for everyone in this race so far? Because again, we only went 15 laps that first stint. This is around 15 laps in this next green flag stint, and a dive down the inside. Will Eberhardt make it stick? Not able to do so, Evan.
And that really going to hurt him here on turn number 2 exit. Look at this, the 9 going to come flying to the inside. Kaczynski maintains, and then we talked fuel off at the get-go. That if this race had stayed green, trying to get to lap 40 was going to be the key to make it on a one-stop strategy, but Kyle Trudell got tagged. What a save by the 7. He's still loose at a turn 4, and Trudell going to reel it back in after he nearly got set by Justin Carey. So no yellow, we stay green. Kyle Trudell, I'm sure with his heart in his throat that time. What a save.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable save. Now, Agno Phillip, by the way, he is going to be a lapped car here. He gets all the way down to the apron to help all of these lead lap drivers just get by. But that was a remarkable save once again. Now, we see the fastest lap on the screen. It's Daniel Eberhardt. That came quite a few laps ago. That 38.333 lap time. If you want to know what his lap time is as he crosses the stripe, well, it was a 40.09. So you can just see how much that tire drop off. That's 1.7 seconds down on his quickest lap. And remember, he did drift a little bit up towards the wall out of turn 2. That could have played a little bit into it. But nonetheless, if you have fresh tires right now, you're in a much better shape than anyone who's on older tires.
Also, some news for some of the drivers involved in the incident earlier, as there was almost contact that time with Kaczynski, as that Sam Nieto has gone behind the wall. And a bad night has gotten worse for Gary Sexton. He has had a connection issue and has also left the session. So, you know, he did all that to get the damage fixed, to stay on the lead lap. His objective, obviously, to try to fight for some points. Gary Sexton right now scored 33rd position. This would be an absolutely devastating blow for his championship hopes. Always a chance he can reconnect, get a couple more spots if some cars rack out, but this is a big blow for Sexton after showing a lot of promising speed and qualifying up towards the front.
All this does is helps the possibility of other drivers to get in. Now, Steve Durham, who was tied on points with Sexton heading into tonight's event, he's currently positioned in number 23, spot number 23, which is obviously not a great spot, especially with Sexton riding up towards the front. But hey, if Sexton has those issues, it could be enough for Durham to pull ever so slightly away from Sexton. Some other drivers to kind of have your mind on. Steve Soa, he's in 17th place. We look down the order some more, and we're not really seeing anyone who needs the points up at the top getting some points. Kyle Kammer, he is currently in 24th. He needs points to get in. He does currently not have the position. Sean Callist, he's the last driver on the lead lap. So Michigan is not really a place right now for drivers who are trying to get into the playoffs to really reel in anyone on that cut line.
Yeah, and Soa right now outrunning all the drivers in front of him, and Sexton obviously wrecked out of this race. Steve Durham way down in the running order after Durham, I believe, was one of those drivers that opted not to come down to the pit lane, so he's kind of banking on a couple more yellows, because that would then have him at a great spot for a couple of late race restarts. The battle for the race lead, though, now has the 9 of George on the inside, and they send it off onto the inside. Look at him forced the 27 Miller all the way up to the outside wall, ran him out of room. Very similar to the near incident between Miller and Sexton when the 13 got into the fence, but it works for George. He leads that lap, but for how long? Here comes the Donnie of Eberhardt to the bottom, a glimpse of 3 wide behind, and the 9 car going to fight back on the outside. This car is so good here at Michigan, and this is great stuff up front. This time by 40 laps down, we're already going to be halfway home.
You know, Thomas George, he's almost locked in based on points alone, but he could certifiably be locked into the playoffs with a win tonight, which would just add some momentum onto his potential playoff run. He's currently positioned in the top 75% of the playoff drivers, and if we want to have an actual number get put to that, he's in 13th. So, okay, maybe just outside the 75 percentile, I guess you could say. But George, a win, it would be very nice for his playoff chances. It would actually, you know, put it 100%.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't complain about it. And of course, as you mentioned, he's in a pretty good position as is. A little bit more than 50 points above the cut line. But a race win in the regular season would give him 3 bonus points to start the round of 16. Not that I think that necessarily is going to be a deal breaker, but like we said when we were referring to the bonus points, we get to be out every single point matters. I'm sure that I would take those extra 3 points starting my playoff hopes, and that's what George is funding for here tonight. He'll shake off the Donnie of Eberhardt, who drops way back to 3rd into the clutches of Michael O'Raya, who admittedly has been pretty quiet for running up inside of the top 10, being in these battles basically all night. I don't know how we haven't talked more about the 44, but there he is on the inside, keeping his nose clean. One-time race winner this year. If you take the wins out of it, 2nd in the points only to the multi-time defending champ Andrew Friedage. Michael O'Raya going to be a big threat come the postseason, and he's trying to make a threat right now in a battle for 3rd.
He's been very quiet but very successful in this race so far. Has been hanging out in the upper half of the top 10 as Miller and George almost come together. They have both been very tight on the exits. And if we're talking about the speed trap, remember, some of these drivers are on very worn tires right now going into turn 3. They were going at 194 and then 182 mid-corner. Now it's 190 they're topping off into turn 3, and 170 they're dropping off to at the apex of turns 3 and 4. You see this beautiful shot of a Camaro sign because that's what currently the lead pack is seeing, with Thomas George in front, but not for the time being. A slide job as Miller goes all the way up to the wall. He's back into 1st, but won't have the momentum. 3 wide, Evan.
To the inside goes Eberhardt, a 3-wide battle for the race lead, working lap 44 at Michigan, and it is inside to out that works. Eberhardt to the lead. Now a crossover by Miller, who returns the favor to the 9 after George crossed him over last time at turn number 2. Trying to get to the outside, the 90 throws a block, so Miller gives him a little bit of a shot that time. Goes to show you Daniel Eberhardt did not want to go up the outside. Miller's going to have to try to work the bottom. A little bit of a bobble, though. The room's not going to be there. Here comes George on the counter. Outside, still the lane to be, and he'll take over 2nd. Here comes O'Raya in tow, looking for what I think may be a race high P3. Not all the way by you.
You know, this is a great battle for the lead, but the pack has sort of spread out if we're talking about P14 and P15. Now, it really looks like some restrictor plate racing. The top 14 separated by just under 2 seconds. But a further 6 seconds back is David Washington in the 15th position, and then it pretty much gets spread out a little further as we get down into Bradley Burke. 31st place, he's the last driver on the lead lap and is 14 laps ahead of Eric Stanford. So that's what the field looks like if we're talking about spacing. It's I think it's going to change a little bit more, though, once we do get into pit stops. Now, there are 35 laps to go in this 80-lap event. They all went into the pits around lap 16 at the yellow. A Cup car can go between 80 and 90 miles on one full tank of fuel, and Michigan is 2 miles long. That means you can go between 40 to 45 laps on a single full tank of fuel. You do all the math, you try it, approximate a little bit with the yellow, and you get to around 65. Lap 65 is when we should start seeing a last bit of pit stops for all of the drivers that went into the pits during that cycle and fueled up, which was, if I'm mistaking myself, all of them. 34 to go, and 10 laps or around that time, Evan, you might see some green flag pit stops.
Yeah, because all these cars up front pitted 33 laps ago, and that time by, in fact, with 33 to go, that window could be open at any moment. But of course, the way that these cars run at Michigan is you need drafting help. So very much like a super speedway, I don't know if I really want to come down pit road, go for the undercut early, and be on my own. Conventional wisdom says you get on the fresh rubber, you're going to be faster. That's true. You won't be as slow as you would be on your own with old tires, but you won't be as fast as you would be with fresh tires and with drafting help. So you're going to see groups of cars come down to the pit lane at any moment now, really. They can do it. They are going to want to save a little bit up. They don't want to go right when they hit the edge of that window. Of course, they do want some extra for overtime. But when you talk about all the drivers who pitted, even if they come down now and get 4 fresh tires, they'll still have a whole set left for some late race drama. There was that group of cars, though, that skipped out on pit stops. Andrew Friedage, Rhett McBride, Dylan Jones, Grant Davis. I mean, those are all top runners in this. We saw them drop to the back after a brief glimpse up front. If this stays green, that call going to be awful for them because they did that to save tires. That's why they're outside of the top 10. That would be uncharacteristic finishes for all of those cars. But there is a lot of pit lane chatter.
Oh,
we have cars in this time by, and our first group is led by those drivers I was just talking about, Friedage, Jones, and more.
Rhett McBride, Adam Benefiel, Shane Parrish, and a whole bunch of other drivers coming down on this lap. That is lap number 49, or at the end of 48, beginning of 49. And I think this is why we were seeing all of the drivers come down. You know, after, as you see some more drivers coming down into the pits, you're going to start to see a lot of the drivers who did not come down into pit lane come around right now because they went around 50 laps on one full tank, and that is with that yellow flag, the caution laps, around 5 or so laps there. So I think if we go green flag, we're around 6 laps away from seeing the next group of stoppers go in. And if there's no green or if there's no yellow until the end, I think that the drivers who did pit had the better strategy call. Just worked out that way.
And of course, the group that came down to the pit lane did so very organized. They're going to try to do is, of course, get back out there, stay together, and not give up any speed or as little as they can. Here's the cars up front, though. Joseph Tice, Michael Lariah, they're down to the pit lane, along with Justin Carey, Daniel Scott, Ross Cato. Looks like the subpar racing car is all going to come in. That would be Soa, Winfield, Pellegrini, Valderrama, and more. So here comes the next big swing of cars, leaving Miller, Kuczynski, and more still out on the racetrack right there, fighting for the race lead. You can see Eberhardt still there, but he's not actually there. He's a lap behind. Look at the fresh tires compared to the 27. Eberhardt, who has already pitted, going to unlap himself. The 27 and the 7 opting to stay out.
This is a very nice study in what the speeds of each of the drivers in front will be through the turns. Now, Kyle Trudell, he is going mid-corner. He drops to 182 miles per hour. Jeremy E. Miller, 174 miles per hour. And you can just see the speed from Trudell and Eberhardt as they go into turn 3. Tops out of 192 miles per hour, only to 184 miles per hour, whereas Jeremy Miller, who's on the outside, who might have trouble getting the pit road, I don't think he wanted to, but he couldn't. If he tried, he dropped to 172 miles per hour. So that speed difference between cars on some fresh Goodyear rubber versus some old worn out tires, that's about 15 miles per hour. That's a huge difference over 2 miles.
It is, and it adds up, and of course you can see with Eberhardt basically blending right back into the battle for the lead, which Jerry Miller has still yet to give up, and as I say that, he's on the radio, he is in this time, that it is basically one lap that you give up. You're going to spend about 40 seconds on the pit lane, anywhere from 14 to 16 to get in your 4 tires, and that is basically what cost you a lap here at Michigan. Somebody at some point missed pit road because there are tire marks through the front straightaway grass, but we're clean and green through this cycle. Miller down pit road. Davey Lamont is down with him, but we talked about wanting to come in with the group. I wonder if staying out's going to prove to hurt the 27 here, because Miller's down pit road, yes, but not with any of the cars that he had been running with before.
Trying to see exactly who that was that missed the pit exit, and I think I found him. Let me just see. It looks like it is Brant Davis in the 24 car. He missed the pits and had to go back onto the track. That's a huge amount of time that you do lose by just trying to screech the car to a halt, missing out, and then having to get yourself back up to speed in a momentum-based package. That's going to really hurt Davis's chances of a decent points-paying finish.
Yeah, he basically spun out, came to a complete stop on the grass. That happened on lap number 51, but kept it going. There was no yellow. He's fortunate that he didn't end up as a stock car shish kebab into the pit wall there, because that can always happen if you get a little bit out of control. And at least for the 24, I guess you can say it could have been worse. Granted, not getting the yellow really hurt him. He was already behind on the cycle as we see Michael Kaczynski take his car off of the pit lane. Brian Chambliss going to come in for the number 2 spot. Remember, Davis, one of the cars who stayed out when everybody else pitted on the first stop, so he was already behind the 8 ball. He's now 2 laps down. Rough go for the number 24, one of those drivers who missed a couple of weeks and came in with quite the gap to the bubble of 70-some-odd points. So Davis now almost certainly in a must-win position at the road course or the super speedway when we head to Daytona Beach after this for the final 2 weeks of the regular season if he wants to fight in the postseason. So there's your new race leader, Dane Cruz at number 46. It'll be short-lived, but he secures the bonus point. He comes down to the pit lane. Brian Chambliss is already off and away, so I think that will throw things back to Sean Kalist as one of the only drivers yet to come down on the SK Sim Racing Aegis Ford Mustang. The next car behind him, Daniel Eberhardt, who appears to be our net leader on this pit cycle.
Well, Kalist, he really needs a nice bit of points in the last few races to really make any dent in what Steve Durham can claim as the final playoff spot. 16 points back is Kalist off of Durham, and obviously there's the conglomeration of Sexton and Adam Benefiel all involved right there, but nonetheless, actually I think I'm reading it just by the points, but you've got Sexton and Durham fighting over that final points paying position in the playoffs, and when it comes down to that, you want to get some extra bonus points, but you also do not want to sacrifice your potential race winning position. That's going to lead to a lot fewer points at the end of the day. So it's about finding that correct balance, and that's the same with how hard you want to drive the tires early in a run until the end of a run. Stock car racing is all about finding that balance of it.
Yeah, that's kind of, and talking about balance, we look at the races coming up. Finding a balance at the Daytona Road Course is going to be such a challenge because, these stock cars are made to go around a track like Michigan, so the balance you're walking is kind of that edge between in control and out of control. The balance you're going to be walking at the Daytona Road Course is in between just wrecking every corner and trying to make it through because stock cars inherently not made for those. So that's what I love about all the varying tracks that NASCAR goes to. Big, small road courses and everything else in between, and it provides quite the challenge. Again, this right now, what you're looking at next time.
Oh no, yellow flag! Wait,
I think we're still green. Actually,
you know what? You want to hear the most idiotic thing I ever did?
What is it?
What do you think? I looked at a replay.
No.
Did you see what happened with Formula One last weekend with David Croft? I believe it was
Lewis Hamilton, the onboard?
Yes, the onboard.
Yeah.
He says, oh, it's Lewis Hamilton. No, it's Valtteri Bottas. I just had my Crofty moment.
We'll just blame it on the, I think what it is as now we're at the 20 to go, I think the thing is with Fox's coverage was the Liberty Mutual ad coming up on the screen, and it had the yellow background on the ticker, and everybody assumed that that was a caution. So just blame it on Liberty Mutual, and we'll call it a day.
I hope we don't plan to get any Liberty Mutual funding in the meantime. But yes, I will. What is that?
Hugo had the drone out following the cars on pit road. Now he's got the horn going. He's having way too much fun in the production.
He's having way too much fun, and you know what? It saves the embarrassment from me. But you gotta laugh at yourself. Thank you. Thank you very much. That camera shake, though.
Yeah, we're trying to look at cars on pit road. These guys are going by at about 190 miles an hour, shaking the camera. Again, the card picture is third in this battle, but it's fourth because, again, Kalis is still your leader. This is going to be the battle for the race lead. Kalis absolutely cannot make it. He's been on those tires and with that fuel for 47 laps. He will be in any second. As I say that, he's in. This time at 4, Sean Kalis to pit road, nice and safely in. He's got a teammate coming down to the pit lane behind him at Eric Stanford, and that will hand things back off to three-time race winner in Daniel Eberhardt, chased by Kyle Trudell, Thomas George, Michael Laraya, and Joseph Tice. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 set to race this thing out to the end.
And I'm trying to look at drivers who could potentially get into the playoffs or at least clinch a spot, even if they're close to being in on points. You've got Thomas George, who could use a win. His first of the season would clinch him, even though he's doing pretty well on points. Now, you've got drivers who do not have that many races like Justin Carey, not enough to get that playoff waiver. I do not believe he has a waiver. Isn't that correct, Evan?
I do not think Justin Carey has a playoff waiver, so I do believe you're correct on that.
Yeah, so
I would have to double check to be official, but I think it was just for Dylan Jones, and maybe there was one more tucked in there, but I don't think one was extended to Carey. So he's also somebody kind of in here playing spoiler.
Well, Ross Cato and Jeremy E. Miller both in their first races of the season. Pretty remarkable that they both have not been in races with how close they are running at the top, the front of the field. You can imagine they would have made this a lot more interesting if they had joined earlier in the season. So from the top 8, all running around a second behind Eberhardt, the leader, you really can only look at Thomas George, who can clinch an extra playoff spot courtesy of a win, even though he's already pretty much in. We'll have to look back at the mid-pack battles to see some really, significant point-paying passes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these drivers who aren't playoff eligible getting late starts that are new. I mean, there's a lot of drivers that are playoff eligible that, are new as well. But Jeremy E. Miller, somebody who is not new. He ran 32 races of the 33 last year. No wins, but he did get 4 top 5s, 11 top... Well, we are back live from Michigan International Speedway, and we apologize about the audio issue there, but we have a caution at lap 68, and we are down pit road for service. It was contact between Benefiel and Scott, a battle for 12th and 11th, and here we go on pit road.
Yeah, we are going to see pretty much everyone in the field head down towards the pits. And I know that Jeremy E. Miller was unhappy with the yellow coming out. He said he had 5 laps fresher tires than the rest of the drivers in the lead pack. Said he was going to win. But obviously, you hit the reset button here, and we're going to have a shootout with around, 8 laps to go once we get going green?
Yeah, this is going to be with inside of 10 laps to go, so this yellow shakes things way up as that contact kind of took it into what was going to be that 8-car battle for the race lead, and with everybody else involved as well. I think, you mentioned those varying strategies. A couple of drivers felt like that they were in prime position. You're currently looking at, I think that's the 24 of Grant Davis. He is not the race leader because he is a lap down, 2 laps down, in fact, in 31st. But remember that last car that came down to the pit lane at the end of the last cycle? That would be the 43 Ford of Sean Kalis. He has opted not to pit under this yellow, and he is your new race leader. I'm just going to go back to double check. At the time of the yellow, was running in 27th spot.
Unbelievable. Look at how that worked out for him. Not only did he get a nice bit of laps led, but he's also going back into the front of the pack. Are you kidding me? Sean Kalis, I mean, this could be the lucky break that he needed to get himself into the playoffs. And like we are seeing in the real NASCAR Cup Series with Austin Dillon and Cole Custer's wins, he could throw a potential wrench into the mix. Could you imagine if a driver currently sitting on the outside of the top 16 gets in? All of a sudden, you look at Gary Sexton, you look at Steve Durham, you look at all of those drivers, they are no longer in that battle on points unless they get a huge payday in the next 2 races. This is an unbelievable chance for Kalis to get himself into the playoffs. It is really, this is something he cannot make any mistake of, Evan.
Came into tonight 16 points out of a playoff spot, tied with Adam Benefiel. Now on the front row, even if it doesn't end in a trip to victory lane, if Sean Kalis could go from the 29th spot in which he started this race and on the grid to the top 5, top 10 finish with the issues that the cars in front of him and the points have had, it could be huge. Or you park it in victory lane at MIS and you guarantee yourself a spot on the 16-car grid in the battle for the Full Throttle Cup in 2020. About to find out if the final 9 laps could be enough to decide it. The pace cars off it in, and Kalis is off and away. Green flag flies, 9 laps to go.
An unbelievable jump for Sean Kalis. He's going to get into turn 1 with a car's length lead. However, he's got Daniel Eberhardt, Michael Laraya going down the inside. He's going to try and force it 3 wide. There are much fresher tires, and Kalis will all of a sudden find himself back in 3rd. He's going to try and keep up with these drivers who have been in the pits just a couple laps ago. It's their first bit of racing action.
It's going to be tough on the 7-lap older tires. The first few laps where that fresh rubber is so much stronger is going to be the difference maker there. You saw Justin Carrybubble. He's into the outside wall in the 12.
Oh, we
race
got a big
to
incident.
the apron to spin.
It's Jeremy E. Miller.
First race in 2020. He is around. Look out. Back up and onto the racetrack. Nobody else is involved, and the caution flag is out. They all took a big dive to the inside, and I think Miller was desperately trying to get in line, and I think the replay will show that he drove that thing right over the nose of David Washington right there. I don't know if he was trying to squeeze it in between or if he just lost a bit of spatial awareness, but right across the nose.
That was not, oh wow, look how close that was. That was not a good move right there from the the debut race for Jeremy E. Miller. That was just I mean, he's going to have to take responsibility for that. That's his own fault.
Ooh, right there.
Yeah, right. That was ridiculous. But you know who this helps more than anybody else, Evan? Sean Kalis.
Yeah, it does put a stop to the bleeding. It was not looking very good for the number 43 Ford. Let's go on board with Daniel Scott for this one as he's coming along. Look out. And I know the 45 in front of him, Devin Winfield asked if the brakes went out on that one as that car went right back up the hill, and I was worried that that was going to be an absolutely massive incident. Instead, we're fortunate enough to avoid one right there. Wow. Both of those cars about that close like from being destroyed.
Frame? Can we get a freeze frame on how close that exactly was? I mean, man, let's see if we can catch it here. Oh, Hugo, what can you do for us? Oh, a little too early. Oh, wow. Wow.
That's like, what do you think, 2 feet maybe from, Scott being able to race this one out for a top 30 finish and that car being on the hook? I mean, and I thought it was time for the 45. I think the 26 had a little bit of a later reaction because he was partially watching, but the 45 was doing in front of him. Could have been a lot worse. Instead, they survive.
I will say, Sean Kalis has gone down into the pits, as some other drivers have done. Dylan Jones. I mean, it's not a busy pit lane, but it's busy enough. David Washington obviously involved in that incident into the pits. Kalis is out. So it looks like he got just a full service pit stop. So we got 4 tires on there. I wonder how this is going to play out because he's going to see himself all the way back down into the mid-20th, 20 places, and I don't know, maybe he feels like with now the freshest tires of pretty much anyone in the field, even if it's just by a lap or two, it might be able to help. I don't know. Maybe it would have been worth bleeding down into maybe 15th, somewhere around there, but there's no guarantee that can happen. I don't know. I feel I'm gonna watch him and see what happens because I feel like there's a chance it could work out, but it's a risk. It's either way, it's a risk.
And it's tricky because, we talked about fuel strategy a little bit earlier in this race and about how associated with that now is the limited tires that are available.
Right.
Now, that was the 3rd trip down to the pit lane for Kalis. That's his max. I feel like that strategy could work. That's saving that one set for late if we didn't have 30 cars on the lead lap. If you had 15, maybe you got a chance. I just don't think that works with that many cars on the lead lap. So instead, it's basically a net gain of 0. He drops all the way to the back, exactly in which, he was before the yellow came out. Remember, he was 27 when that yellow came out, allowed him to stay out, go to the race lead. Now, the cars up front don't have that option. Everybody else down to Farinaj in 12th. And again, I just don't think it works with the amount of laps left and how many cars are on the lead lap. But Farinaj has 4 tires on pit road as well. Everybody else around him has used up all their tires. So the only way I can see that ever getting used is if we have a couple of big wrecks and we get deep into our 3 attempts at overtime. So you can see Farinaj right there. He'll line up on the inside of row number 6. And through all of this, Michael Lariah get to go to the race lead alongside Daniel Eberhardt. This time by will go green. It'll be at 4 laps to go.
Sean Kalis is in 24th place, so not horrific, but not great either. There was really no right answer, I'd say, for him there. But always, it's Andrew Farinaj. He is always finding his way back up to the front, even though it's taken him a little bit longer than usual. This will, of course, not be an overtime yet, since it's starting with 4 laps left. I am so excited to see what happens here, Evan. Hopefully, we've got some clean driving.
Another driver returning, making his first start of the year, Ross Cato, 4th on the outside of row 2. Could he be a spoiler also? Green flag flies, 4 laps to go, and Michael Lariah had a great jump. It is 4 car lengths into turn 1, but the draft is going to reel him back in. Eberhardt drops down. He's ahead of the 9 for 2nd. Watch as they close through 1 and 2.
Seeing how the mid-pack deals with different sets of tires, different strategies, it looks like Kalis is going to have a big run down the backstretch, but we see the 9 of Thomas George get a big run, trying to go down low. Will he get the lead away? Coming out of turn 4, they're side by side, he and Michael Lariah. But the momentum
he
goes to
basically
Lariah.
beat the 90 to the punch. The 90 wanted to go low, but the 9 stepped out from under him first. There's nowhere for Eberhardt to go. He's stuck up top, so he'll push Lariah. He got Cato in line behind them, and Davey Lamont going to join the 9 of Thomas George on the inside, trying to make the bottom line work. This time at a 2, the advantage to the outside. Watch as Lariah is going to pull to almost a car length. He'll be clear in turn 3. This time by, coming to 2 laps to go.
Look who is in 6th spot. Kyle Kammer. He needs a win to lock himself into the playoffs. Will he get all the way up into first place? 2 to go.
2 to go and 3 wide for the race lead as Daniel Eberhardt went to the middle, and Michael Lariah going to be the big loser. He'll go for the race lead to 5th, if not 6th, as he fell way behind. Now it's George on the inside. He cannot clear Daniel Eberhardt. He'll lead the outside charge down the back. Now pushed by Cato. Contact with Lariah. A bobble. They save it door to door in turn number 4. They need the white flag for this race to be official.
George can clinch the playoffs with a win, but he has a lot of traffic to deal with right now. White flag is in the air. 1 more lap to go. And look at that run from Kammer. He's going to try and make it 3 wide. No, he cuts back down to the inside off of turn 2, Evan.
Oh, and there's contact for second. Davey Lamont bobbles. He touches Eberhardt. So it's going to be slow for the 40. He'll fall 3 wide. Here's Eberhardt, though, to the apron. Back to the outside wall. To the inside again. Side by side for the lead. But the last-ditched effort, I don't think is going to stick. Thomas George holds the outside for his first win of 2020. And Michigan going to bring Thomas George to the postseason.
Wow.
What a final restart of 4 laps to go. But a half a dozen cars who had just as good a chance as anybody else to put it in victory lane. Davey Lamont bobbled at a 2. He dropped back. It set us up for the drag race to the end, and you could see Eberhardt just did not have the speed. Tucked in line, looked low, but it was not enough. And for the first time in 2020, Thomas George a winner in the Full Throttle Cup Series.
Unbelievable. The margin of victory, 73 hundredths of a second. That is close. That's probably about, what, half an inch? Something like that? Pretty incredible. Oh,
I don't think you can blink your eyes and open them in that amount of time. That's how close that was. Is Thomas George is going to burn it down on the front straightaway. He's got a company there in Davey Lamont to congratulate him. And Thomas has had such a good 2020 campaign. 7 top 10s, 2 top 5s, but you know that he wanted that win as the lead driver for Steel Horse Racing, and he is finally back into victory lane. And what a celebration this will be. One of the longtime RSR vets in Thomas J. George, and he has done it once more. This will be career win number 6 all time.
Unbelievable. What a race. And Kyle Kammer gets himself a 4th place finish. Sean Callist, he finishes in 18th, so not terrible for Callist, but I'm sure he wishes that he maybe could have stayed out and seen what could happen, but I don't feel like he would have had any opportunity to stay up front with the way those guys were driving. Now, once we do look at that Gatorade victory lane, he knows exactly where to go here at Michigan, Thomas George does. But once we do get to the point standings, as we see the race results here, that's going to be an interesting look. I'll let you take this one, though, Evan.
Well, there's your top results. We'll talk with your top three finishers in just a little bit here as George, Eberhardt, and Lamont come home 1, 2, and 3. Kyle Kammer, Andrew Friedrich, quiet for most of it. Ended up factors late. They finished in 4th and 5th. They probably needed about 1 or 2 more laps to become a factor. Came up a little bit shy. Cato, Trudell, Cruz, Carey, and Lariah, the top 10.
And going back into the rest of the top 20, Joseph Theus finishes in 11th place, Tom Morano in 12th, John Fowler, Brian Chambliss in 14th position. You've got Shane Parrish alongside Dylan Jones. Jones, who did not have a stellar race, but doesn't necessarily need one. He's in the playoffs anyway. Grant Davis in 17th, Sean Kalis in 18th, John Rodden in 19th, while David Washington, involved in the final caution, finishes 20th.
And then a couple of drivers with the late bad luck. The likes of Bradley Burke, Adam Benefiel had good looks. Jeremy Miller, Daniel Scott both started inside of the top 5. But then you got Pellegrini. Steve Soa had a great opportunity tonight to make up points. You can see he's there with his teammates. He was involved in a late race accident. He finishes in the high 20s. That almost puts him into a must-win situation because he was already borderline with points as was. Down through PD29, Michael Kaczynski wrecking across the start-finish line. The final driver to finish on the lead lap. It'll be 1 lap down for Devin Winfield in 30th.
There's nothing better, Evan, than when the results are updated to the website and we can check out the standings. But Rhett McBride, 31st, 11 laps down. Eric Stanford, 33 laps down. Agnell Phillips, 53 laps down. Then Gary Sexton, Sam Nieto, 2 drivers who really needed some good results, unfortunately taken out in early incidents. But out of all 35 drivers, that's your field. This was a fantastic race, Evan. A lot better at the end with that caution, I must add, too.
Yeah, it certainly spiced things up, and Thomas George, I'm sure, is happy how the cards aligned because he gets that first win of 2020. We'll take a very quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll get a word with your top finishers and get you set for a trip to South Florida for the final 2 weeks of the regular season. You're watching RaceSpot's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted. Post-race action next from MIS, where Thomas George is your winner.
One of the 2 requirements in order for your license to be promoted is your minimum participation requirement, or your MPR. Your minimum participation requirement requires drivers to run a certain number of races at their current license level before being allowed to graduate to the next license. The status of your MPR can be found in your iRacing profile, which you can find by clicking on your helmet in the iRacing UI and viewing your profile. From there, click on the Licenses tab. This box will show you your MPR obligation for all 4 licenses and what you need to do in order to complete the requirement. All rookie level series allow you to fulfill your rookie MPR obligations, but as you move up the ladder, it can be hard to know which series will contribute to your current license. To find out, look for the green MPR Up icon in the series description on Tile mode, or the green Up arrow in List mode. Keep in mind that only completing your MPR obligations will not allow you to advance your license level. You must also satisfy your safety rating requirements in order to advance. MPR can also be achieved by running time trials, which we will cover in a separate tutorial.
And back live from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, where RacespotTV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize digitally, continued here tonight for round number 18. from the Irish Hills of Brooklyn, Michigan. Happy that you're still with us. RacespotTV, Evan Pasoka, Dylan Coyle upstairs with you. We're going to go trackside now and chat with tonight's race winner. He started the evening as a bubble driver. He will leave Michigan locked in to the fight for the 2020 Full Throttle Cup. We're chatting now with the driver of the number 9 machine, Thomas George. And Thomas, I know it's been at points an up and down season for you, but you came into tonight pretty safe on the points. You leave tonight locked in. You will 100% be in the playoffs for 2020.
Yeah, it's we would definitely. I don't prefer to be in on points, but I always prefer to win. And finally, snapped that freaking winless streak I've had in this league for way too long. Been close a lot of times, and man, I still hate this car's lack of horsepower, but it seems to suit me well at Michigan, so I'll take it tonight.
Yeah, it seems like if there's any track where the whole concept of the low horsepower, high downforce produces good racing is Michigan. I mean, it almost looked like a plate race at times, the way that we saw the top group break away, the fact that people didn't want to kind of come down to the pit lane on their own. They wanted some support. How does this one work out for you, though? You start on pole, you finish in victory lane, but there was a bit of strategy in there involved with green flag pit stops, some late race yellows, kind of threw some drama in. Just talk us through this race from behind the wheel.
Well, the first 10 laps or so, the car was, essentially on rails, but that was a deceiving feeling, because if you weren't able to save your tires at the right time, especially on that right front, the car would just push heavily, especially with this particular package where it just has such an aero push feel to it. And you just gotta, it's really hard to get it all in one cohesive sentence. I mean, but the main thing with this car is momentum, and combined with the aero push and the right front tire wear, it kills your momentum, and you kind of have to pick and choose your battles, but you always have to do that with Michigan anyway. I mean, it's one of those things where before that caution came out that kind of reset everything with 10 to go, I was just playing the long game and just waiting for my opportunity to strike. And then, well, the final caution came out and kind of threw a monkey wrench into that.
And it ended up lining up in the end as you go to victory lane. Of course, the race win not only locks you in, but it gets you 3 bonus points to start the round of 16. So I have to ask, what's honestly more valuable, those 3 bonus points or the monkey off the back?
Both. It's been a struggle with this car at times, and I've had really good runs with the 750 horsepower package, and with this car, I just still have not been able to quite figure out how to race with it like I want to. And I'm an old school guy. I like to use the throttle to wheel the car around and muscle the car around to get it to do what I want it to do. So this kind of changes it a little bit, and it's still one of those things I have to get better at. But for an up and down year that it has been, I mean, I felt we've had top 10 to top 5 cars, for a good amount of the tracks, and then there's others where it's just like, okay, it's not there. So as far as the playoff points, those are always important, as we have seen with this playoff format the last couple of years. You got Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin in the real world that are probably going to cruise to the Final Four just by the amount of wins that they have with those playoff points. So I would say the win is obviously more important, but it's nice to get the monkey off my back and finally get a victory again.
And obviously the way that you were up there battling tonight showed that you weren't walking on eggshells, but your point situation was that you were safe unless things went catastrophically wrong. And now that there's no chance of that happening, I think you're going to be a lot more comfortable as we head to South Florida for a trip to the Daytona road course, followed up by a return trip to the Super Speedway. So what are your thoughts on those 2 races? Of course, the debut of the road course, and then a trip back to where this season started as we close out our regular season.
Well, it's definitely nice to have that win locked up and not have to worry about the calamity that, a Daytona race, a regular Daytona race, I should say, can ensue. And the Daytona road course is obviously we've never seen anything like that before in stock car racing, especially with the chicane off of turn 4 there. It comes up at you quick, so it's nice to not have to worry about that. It's also nice to, considering that my job requires me to be on call every couple of weeks. It's always kind of like, okay, can I get through this race without getting pulled away from something? So it's nice that we can just go into these last 2 weeks and kind of just shoot for wins and try to get as many playoff points as I can. And it's like, and the same thing with my teammate Adam Benefield. He had the win from Daytona to start the year, and he's not had the best of luck, but that win gets him in the playoffs as long as he's in the top 30. So definitely going to be an interesting couple of weeks to see who can get in, who can avoid elimination.
We're getting a good look at that number 9 Chevy Camaro, which I think is quickly becoming kind of one of the iconic cars that I associate with this RSR Full Throttle Cup Series, Thomas. So as you celebrate from Michigan International Speedway Victory Lane, the sponsors, the shout-outs, and all those good folks, who makes it happen for you on Monday nights?
Just listening to good old Sirius XM as little pump-up music. Milwaukee Tools, they allow me to buy the stuff I can to race to here on Monday nights and pay for the league and all that good stuff. And I hope the Real Sim Racing decals came in. Trading Paints was acting up for me tonight, so hopefully that isn't an issue with points or anything. And of course, all my teammates, had some misfortune from a driver I won't mention, but it is what it is. And they'll be ready for the playoffs. They're too good to be held down. And of course, all my teammates that race in various other leagues and help me out whenever I can or when I need it.
Well, Thomas, I say it every time we talk to somebody in Victory Lane. We appreciate having you racing in this league on Monday nights. We appreciate the team as well. Welcome back to Victory Lane. Congrats, and we'll catch you next Monday.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate what you and everybody does for RSR.
Race winner tonight here in the Pure Michigan 160. So it is Thomas George headed to Victory Lane, and it was a great battle down to the wire with the number 90 machine of Daniel Eberhardt, who comes home second this evening. Trackside with him is Dylan.
Yeah, alongside Daniel Eberhardt. Daniel Eberhardt has finished outside the top 20 at Michigan in the last 2 runnings in the Full Throttle Cup Series. And Daniel, finally you get that monkey off your back at Michigan, at least when it comes to top 5s. It's your first since 2017 at Michigan. How's it feel?
Well, it feels pretty good. It was I don't know, fairly short race, I guess you could say. 80 laps isn't really a long time, and oh man, I wish I could just meet whoever invented this package and just have a good talking with them, because it is, absolutely. If you wanted NASCAR like what we have on the sim, I could understand it. But NASCAR in real life, oh my God, the package is just trash. They could just gobble it up and just do away with it. No taking the win away from Thomas or anything, but he's having a block down to the apron. It puts on a good show for sure for y'all to watch, but man, it's just so annoying to be stuck right there and you can't really do nothing. You can't make any moves. Spoilers just creating such a big win for the guy behind you where he can draft up to you. Oh man, if Steve O'Donnell or Mike Hilton, I just wish they could just have a big conversation with the fans of this package.
Well, you and Thomas George have the same kind of opinion there. Hey, SRX series, it's coming up within the next couple years, so that'll be a fun watch when it comes to no splitters on the cars. But nonetheless, it is your 10th top 5 of the season. It's the 3rd time you finished second, 6th time you finished within the top 2. Do you feel like you are just right there competing for that championship? Because I feel like if any of the people just looking on to this series would come in from an outside perspective, they'd have to say you are one of, if not the front runner of the series.
I never look at myself that way. I try not to get too big-headed. I used to. I was really big-headed a lot and kind of came back to bite me in my tail. But no, I kind of go into each and every race just trying to have fun. If you stop having fun, it starts to feel like a job. And when it starts to feel like a job, it's not fun anymore. And, with Thomas doing what he had to do to win, that was fun. It's fun to the extent of, okay, it's Daytona and Talladega on a intermediate track. And, man, I don't know. I want to say we're going to be competitive at the end of this year, but going to Phoenix, I have a heavy foot when it comes to getting on the throttle off the corners, and I think Andrew Freenage is going to be the guy who can keep the tires up under him, or Dylan Jones, or even somebody might sneak in there like Adam Benefiel. I think there's going to be a lot of people, that can run for this front group for the Final Four.
Well, that's well, some would say beauty, some would say not beauty of this playoff format that the NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series in real life use. But obviously, we're trying to replicate that here with the Full Throttle Cup Series. You've started 160 races now in the Cup Series, a winning percentage of 13.13%. You're right there among some of the best all time. I know you don't consider yourself one of them, but with the playoffs coming in just a couple weeks, you might have to compete for some pretty high regards with drivers like Andrew Freenage and others. With 2 races left before the playoffs, what kind of goes into your strategy? Because it doesn't look like you let off the throttle at all when it comes to competing for wins.
I'm not really a road course driver, but the good thing is that, it's not like we're going in there like, throwing a dart in the water like the big guys are on Sunday, but we can practice, run a couple laps and then make, kind of adjustments with your steering and everything and get used to the track. But Andrew's really good at plate racing. I think Trudell's really good. There's a couple people who are going to, surprise you coming on next Monday. But then we get another off week. Evan, what's up with all the off weeks? But now, and then we go to Daytona. So, I mean, Daytona, you know how it is. It's a crapshoot. I love plate racing. I love it. But this package, nah. I don't like package racing or pack racing at Michigan. But no, I think Evan's done a great job with how he's done the season. And I think, going off of what NASCAR goes off of, even though, the coronavirus came in, took away, most of the tracks we could have watched in real life, but we got to run them. So I was thankful for him keeping it, straight to the schedule for that. So, but, going in, people don't think about it. The playoffs, you're going to have Bristol and Darlington and stuff like that. That's going to be exciting. I mean, that's a lot of racing at different tracks. And, Darlington's a one-off track. We haven't ran there all season. So that's going to be a curveball also.
And dealing with a lot of tire degradation at tracks like Darlington and Bristol is really going to throw another wrench into the entire fire. And what you're saying is definitely an interesting point, though, about the pack racing versus plate racing. Now, to you, is there a difference in terms of what you're seeing out on the track with a track like Michigan with this specific package versus Daytona and Talladega, where even though it's a little different and a little less, or not a little less, but a good bit of less horsepower at the super speedways, you're still in general, it's still momentum-based track. What's the difference to you in terms of you love plate racing, but you don't like this pack racing at a track like Michigan?
You can come up and tap the guy on your front bumper and not have to let off and worry about somebody hitting you from the rear end. The bubble, in plate racing makes a bigger bubble in the air, and it doesn't allow you to go up under somebody and not be able to stay up beside him. If you go through the turn 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 on the bottom here at Michigan, the guy on the outside is going to get the run because he's got more momentum. It's not as momentum based in plate racing. You build a line behind the guy and you watch your rearview mirror and you take that momentum from the third guy and build your momentum to the guy in front of you, and you can either slingshot past him or you can stay in line and give him a shot if you got cars to your outside 2 and 3 wide. You got to play a lot in your rearview mirror, and this one it's just like the guy, like if you notice tonight, they would go in and just drive it into the center of the corner. You don't have to worry about that at plate racing or anything like that. It's not so much the package, it's that there's no driving involved anymore to me in this car. It just not in real life and not in the sim. They exactly hit it on. I mean, it's what you wanted, and that's what NASCAR gave us. And I would think even NASCAR would want it more like it is today. But no, I think I think you've seen it tonight where the 27 and the 9 could drive to the center of the corner, and I'm still old-fashioned Daniel driving, letting off early, rolling back into the throttle, and you just don't have to do that anymore, and that's where it kills the guys who like a driver's car and a driver's track.
Well, if you can still finish second with a car you don't feel like is the best to handle, it certainly says something about your driving craft. Anybody you'd like to shout out before ending here?
Yeah, I'd like to thank SK Sim Racing, all the guys back on our little team, Kammer, Dave Washington, Dylan Jones, Eric Stanford, Joey English, Stephen Durham, all the guys, and I'd like to thank the good Lord above. Without him, none of this would be possible. My grandma watching in the other room and my fiance watching from her home.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the second place finish, Daniel. And I know it's going to be a fun run till the playoffs here. But nonetheless, we will talk to the third place finisher in Davey Lamont. Davey, thanks for joining us here. This is your first Full Throttle Cup Series race. Now, you've started to get into the real sim racing fold, I guess you could say, recently, and now this is your first race with the Cup Series. What's it like for you coming out here after competing in the Truck Series and IROC just a few weeks ago?
I tell you, I had a change of teams over the weekend, and with Dirty Monkey, John Fowler, owner over there, and been running a lot of sprint cars before this, and decided to come out and try it tonight. I know picked up the win in the trucks at Stafford a couple of weeks back, and for a win and a third place in the first two big series out, I'll take it. It's a blast. It's a great place to run. Everybody's friendly and clean. There's just an overall great experience over here.
So tell us a little bit about the previous runnings you've had with the super late model at Auto Club Speedway. You didn't lead any laps there. You finished 8th place, which amazingly was your worst finish of the 3 races you've done so far. You won at Stafford after starting second in the Outlaw Truck Series, and then a few weeks later, obviously, you have a 3rd place finish. How did it look? How did the car handle for you at Michigan? I know we had Thomas George and Daniel Eberhardt talking about obviously not liking this current package. What's it like for you?
This package is something else. It takes the drive out of it. It takes the talent out of the car, and it's pretty much really that last green flag run we had. It was wide open, hold at the bottom, and hope you could block somebody to the finish. So this package to me is it's what the fans wanted in the real life. It's not what I wanted to see. It's not the old-fashioned NASCAR that I'm used to watching on TV. So,
well, it was a great run by you. Now, we saw quite a few, just a little bit of bumps as the race wound down. You ended up with 8 incident points. What did you kind of get from the physical contact that could happen in the Full Throttle Cup Series?
a lot of the incident points were just from bump drafting. I mean, there was no. I think I got two incident points after the race was over, but a lot of just from bump drafting. I mean, you can suck up so good in these cars with these big spoilers, and you can get somebody a bump draft to a trial with there and get a 4X from that. And didn't really have no damage to the car. The car felt good all night. Bobbled off 2 there in that last lap, which really got us, but we were able to reel back into the bumper of Thomas to the win and push him there. But wish I could have not bobbled and able to hold that low line going through 3 and 4 at the end there.
Now, we go to Daytona next week before having another off week. Evan, thank you. At the road course at Daytona, what are you like with road course racing, especially with a stock car?
Well, if you've ever watched Dodgeball the movie, it's what's like for me in road course. I'm awful at it. I'll have a lot of practice in it, getting chips and points down pat, but as far as it going, it's just not my cup of tea.
Okay, well, we really appreciate that candidness right there. Anyone you'd like to shout out before leaving, Davey?
Need to give a shout out to Dirty Monkey Motorsports. John brought me on this week, so I'm gonna hang out with him for a while and his team and feel them out. Sheets Fresh Food, open 24/7, coming on board. Lamont Graphic Design for the wrap this week. The whole RSR crew, you guys for broadcasting, and everybody for tuning in and watching.
Well, we appreciate that, but I must say, Wawa over Sheets, buddy. Congratulations.
Easy.
Congratulations on that third place finish, Davey. We look forward to seeing what you do at the road course next week at Daytona.
Thanks, guys.
No problem. But Evan, there's your top three. It was a very unique looking top three, one we haven't really seen much of coming into this season. You know, we've been seeing a lot of familiar faces. Usually Daniel Eberhardt is one of those top three, if not top five finishers. But Thomas George, Davey Lamont, it's interesting to get some new faces into the interview room post-race.
Yeah, and we have the updated points as well, and it looks like Steve Durham now becomes our bubble driver, 3 points
so
ahead of Kyle Kammer. Bradley Burke moved up a bit. Brian Chambliss moved up. Gary Sexton, the big drop as he drops out. However, I'm taking a look, and it looks like he's only out by 5. So it could have been a lot worse. We talked about him maybe standing to benefit from all those other drivers having a bad night out. Well, he had a bad night. They didn't do that great either. So he's not that terribly off.
4 drivers fighting over one final spot, Evan, and all of them are separated by just 5 points. That's insane. I am so excited to see what's going to happen at the road course. I don't think I'll still be with you, though, when we do get to the last race of the regular season. I believe Justin Prince will come back into the color commentary box, but looking forward to seeing what the road course at Daytona brings.
Well, you had to go and break my heart like that. And we're talking about, of course, you know, the off weeks on Mondays, and that's because we run RSR iRock Series competition, and we have highlights from that last time out. So the iRock Series is a 4-week championship that mimics the old iRock cars from the early 2000s and the 90s, and we run the super late models with a custom fix setup. Here's highlights from last time out. So 2 Mondays ago, again, no TV when we go iRock racing on Monday nights, but we were at Talladega Super Speedway for the 3rd race of the season. That next Monday off, by the way, could be the last race. Issues with Devin Winfield. He was involved in an incident early. This is kind of like the Cup cars on steroids. It doesn't matter what track you put them at, they just stay in a big pack. So we had a yellow just shy of halfway, bit of pitch strategy. Some drivers going fuel only, not opting to take tires. It shuffled up the running order just a little bit, and that put the likes of Cole Fralick, somebody who we've seen in our Trucks and iRock series with a starting Cup as well up front, Trevin Valderrama, and look at that 13 car. Not doing bad. Aside Gary Sexton, you see the 13 of Sexton, the 7 of Kyle Trudell, some of the top drivers in the Cup Series race in iRock with us as I push the 0-2 to the race lead.
Oh, no.
There's a reason we have to get the highlight package into the show. That's all I'm saying.
Not even just self-promotion on social media. The brand social media.
Correct, yeah.
We have to show it here.
Well, and a little bit of context.
What was that?
Gary got into the quarter panel. We saved it, but it was a bit of a mess behind. So we're good. It was a little bit of a touch. You're on board. I think this was with Fralick in that kind of seafoam car. He got absolutely destroyed up against the fence. There's Dylan Jones going around, Brian Chambliss, Kyle Trudell, that baby blue car on the inside. So a late race yellow. A couple of the cars at the back of the field decided to come down and get some fuel for an overtime finish. So 2 laps to go. I'm the control car teamed up with the 75 of Steve Soa. We get out to an early lead, but here comes John Fowler and Gary Sexton. It got interesting coming to the white flag.
You know, why don't we have these races broadcast, Evan? I'll take over, and I'll make sure to give you all the credit you need, because look at this. I think that was a white flag,
White flag. I will say, the iRock Series, this is now down the back straightaway on the white flag. The iRock Series has been super popular. We've had about 30 different drivers come and race it. There's Steve Soa, just about got dumped by Sexton. He throws the block on John Fowler, and that, my friends, is a checkered flag for the number 13 of yours truly. Race winner a little bit earlier this year in the season opener for the Truck Series at Daytona International Speedway, and now a race winner in the iRock Series.
Wow.
So maybe, because we started iRock a little bit late, we've only, again, got 4 weeks to do it because we started it halfway through the year. It sounds like all the drivers want iRock back next year. So we'll probably get a bigger schedule, 7 to 8 races. Maybe we get it on RaceSpot TV. I will say, looking at the iRock points, with one race left, we're actually racing here at Michigan. So we got the road course at Daytona next Monday. It is the Monday after that where it's our iRock finale. And your current iRock points leader.
Yep.
By 6 points.
6 points.
Over Kyle Trudell. And you saw how good Kyle Trudell did tonight at Michigan. So that has me worried. So I'm not beating up on anybody. I mean, these are the best guys. They are so much fun to race. And yeah, we'll have highlights. Unless I kind of embarrassingly lose the championship, then maybe the highlight reel will get lost.
Won't happen.
And we won't be able to see it in the season finale at Daytona. No, but we'll show highlights of that. Maybe we get iRock on TV next year. We'll talk with Hugo about that and see if it works for our Monday slot. It's been a lot of fun, but we'll transition back into our conversation about the Cup Series. Of course, Cup is racing at the road course this weekend with no practice. So all those guys are probably on the sim right now, practicing, because that's the only way to warm up. Of course, we got the Coca-Cola Series there tomorrow night. NASCAR has a special event Wednesday there with, I think, Chad Knaus and William Byron are racing on the sim on Wednesday. The Daytona road course. I don't know. I have not been told, but I think I'll be helping out behind the scenes, trying to help that broadcast and organize things.
Give me a call.
Let you know. So we're kind of bookending the Daytona road course. We're last. You got all these events, and if you haven't had enough Daytona road course by the end of the week, join us next Monday, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here, RacespotTV. That'll be a good one, followed by the Super Speedway. There's the chicane. I am so looking forward to that. And again, this is an opportunity for drivers where you're not going to have full course yellows. So it doesn't matter what happens, you're going the distance. So this is a big chance for maybe some of those road course ringers to get some points. Daniel Eberhardt said that we're going to be surprised. So looking forward to that race.
It's interesting because looking at how the chicane goes, you're going to have to, there's almost going to be 2 braking points, I feel like. You're going to have to brake heavily heading into the start of the chicane, but the way it works, it's almost tighter. The mid part of the chicane, we'll see right here. The mid part of the chicane is tighter, so you start to brake heavily right here. I would say, just go off the throttle a bit, brake even heavier right here before trying to swing it back at the most speed you can get right back on the throttle, cut through the curbing as much as you can, and you're back onto the tri-oval. I think that's the only way you could have had the Daytona road course on real life, especially without practice, because could you imagine 170 miles per hour, all the cars heading into turn 1 at the road course? That would be a bit of a disaster, I guess you could say.
And it may still be a disaster as is. We've seen some crazy... Remember the Roval? When we had a whole weekend of practice the first time at Roval?
The Xfinity Roval race.
Yeah, and there's no practice at all for this. So I think it's going to be a thriller. That is a sketchy chicane, by the way. All of it. Because you're on the brakes, on the banking at a turn 4 on the Super Speedway. You're wheel hopping a little bit. That's still a tricky turn, even with the chicane. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that is up next for us next Monday. But we blabbered on enough, so we'll let you go on with it tonight. We're happy that you're with us, as always, on a Monday evening. So for our entire team at Real Sim Racing and for your broadcast team tonight, for Hugo Luis, Dylan Coyle, myself, Evan Pasoko, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Thomas J. George, who's a winner in the Full Throttle Cup Series for the first time since 2015. Talk about a winless drought that he snapped here tonight. He's locked into the playoffs. We'll catch you next time, though, next Monday, August the 17th, from the Daytona International Speedway road course. That race and every race of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted, can be found exclusively right here on RaceSpot TV. Until next time, good night from MIS.